Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Wanted to take some time and dive into this Oregon Ducks team that I think ever since that loss against Washington, people are sleeping on a little bit. Again, you go back and look at that Washington game. One, you got to tip your caps to Michael Penix, Kalen DeBoer, and what that Husky team did at home. That being said, the Oregon Ducks did look like a very good team against Washington, outgained the Huskies by over 100 yards. This is a team that I think is still one of the most dangerous teams, not only in the Pac-12, but in the national landscape. Want to get into why I'm so high on this Oregon Ducks team. Now, before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys and shout out the Oregon Duck fans. You guys have shown just a ton of support to the boys, whether we've been talking Oregon in the 2023 season or on the recruiting trail. You guys always show a ton of love. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section as well. If I'm leaving some things out that you think I should have touched on, let me know. We'll chop it up there. And without further ado, let's get into this. And I want to start with just kind of a broad take on this Oregon team. When you go back and watch the film, then you go and look at the numbers, you start to see how complete and balanced this Oregon Ducks team is. And when I say complete and balanced, I mean, when you look at different matchups they'll have to see, whether they're playing like a bruising team like Utah or Oregon State, or whether a more of an air raid team that wants to spread you out like USC or Washington, this Oregon team can play both and get that kind of style at a high level, right? A lot of other teams across the country and even outside of the Pac-12 are kind of vulnerable at a spot, right? Whether they're vulnerable to a team running the football and playing physical with them or spreading them out and using that speed. The Oregon Ducks really just balanced on both sides. One, you look at the offense and defensive numbers. This is an offense that's scoring 41.3 points per game. That's number 5 in the country. You look at the defense, only allowing 18.7 points per game. That's 21st in the country. Really balanced on both sides of the ball. That offense we knew would be good. That defense has taken massive strides in the right direction. But then you look at and kind of take a deeper dive into individual units on the offense. I mean, Bo Nix, we'll get into him a little bit more, playing like a Heisman caliber player, highest completion percentage in college football, but they also can run the football as well, right? So when you have that threat that if you want to load the box and try to stop a run game, that, I mean, you look at Bucky Irving and Jordan James, both averaging over 7.5 yards per carry. I mean, Troy Franklin, Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, Gary Bryant, they have so many weapons to beat you through the air. And then if you do want to play coverage, like, this is a team that if you give Oregon a light box, they will just run it down the football field with Bucky Irving, Jordan James in an elite offensive line. So on the offensive side of the ball, like, really complete, really hard unit for a defense to kind of look at and say, hey, how can we scheme up and stop them? Because there are so many different ways this Oregon Ducks team can hurt you. And then on the defensive side of the ball, really good against the run, 3.1 yards per carry. That's 17th in the country. And then you look at the secondary, I mean, 6.5 yards per pass. That's top 30 in the country. And I would say, and we'll dive into the secondary a little bit more, this secondary, I think, is playing better than the numbers. And we'll get into that a little bit. Now, focusing on the offensive side of the ball, Bo Nix has been great. We'll touch on him. But we got to talk about how good this offensive line has been, not only in pass pro. You take a look at the pass pro numbers. 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen, Marcus Harper, Jackson Powers Johnson, Stephen Jones, Johnny Cornelius, they have combined to only allow 8 total pressures. Now, Josh Connolly Jr., the young left tackle, he's given up 8 by himself, and he's still – that is a hard spot for a second-year tackle to come in and play at a high level. He's going to continue to get better, but on aggregate, that offensive line has done a phenomenal job protecting Bo Nix. You look at Bo Nix, he's only taken sacks on 1.83% of his dropbacks. That's number 4 in the country. Now, you look at the run game. I'm a Michigan fan. So Michigan and Oregon run a very similar kind of running style. They like to play that gap scheme, pull guys around. I haven't seen an offensive line do that like Michigan. And then I look at Oregon's tape, and that's exactly what they do. I mean, they just move bodies. They're really good at hitting double teams. Those pullers are really good at getting to the next level. And you're running behind running backs that if you give them a 3-yard, if you block for 3, they're going to grab 8. If you block for 8, they're going to make it 25. Like, this is a running back room that is extremely talented. Bucky Irving putting up just some crazy numbers, but they're running behind an elite offensive line that has played very, very good this season. Now, I want to touch on Bo Nix, and it's kind of wild to think about this, but if Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks win that game on the road against Washington, which I really do think I hope we get that rematch because I think that's going to be a phenomenal game again. Bo Nix is the leading odds for winning the Heisman. I guarantee you. You take a look at his numbers: a 78% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, 1 interception, over 2,000 yards through 7 games. It absolutely insane numbers from Bo Nix. He's taking care of the football. He's making the right decisions. He's been extremely accurate pushing the ball down the field. And you look at Bo Nix's numbers, like, hey, what if you heat him up? What if you send some pressure on him when blitzed? Completing 70% of his balls, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. There's not many ways to get Bo Nix kind of off his game because when you do send pressure, one, the offensive line has been phenomenal picking up that pressure. Two, I mean, Troy Franklin or Tez Johnson or Gary Bryant or Trayshawn Holden are dealing with one-on-one coverage, and they're going to be winning that matchup. So again, going back to how to scheme up to stop this offense, when I look at some of these games and watch the film, there's not many ways. You try to blitz them, load the box, stop the run, they're going to throw the football. You want to play coverage, they're going to run the football. It's a complete offense that doesn't have many holes, doesn't have many ways for you to scheme and kind of stop them. And I think that's why they're one of the most dangerous teams in college football. Now, switching to the defensive side of the ball, I have some things that I think they're doing really well and some things that I think they can continue to work on towards this back half of the schedule. What I think's been really good, and the numbers, if you are somebody who goes out to a party on Saturday, just checks the box score, maybe you're saying, oh, this Oregon secondary is still really vulnerable. I really don't think that's the case. Like going back and watching the Washington game, going back and watching the Washington State game, yes, were those offenses able to throw for some yards? I don't think that speaks poorly on what they've been doing in the back end. I mean, you've had guys like Kyrie Jackson, I know banged up. He's played phenomenal. Jaleel Florence. Evan Williams probably had his worst game against Washington, but on aggregate has played really good football. But when you watch the film, like when they get beat with just really good wide receiver play and really good quarterback play. And if Washington can come back and play the way they did again, I mean, sometimes you got to tip the cap to them, but can they maintain that level for 4 quarters against Oregon on a neutral site where you'll see them in the Pac-12? I'm very interested to see that because we've seen Washington. You go back to that Arizona game or Arizona State game last week, you've seen them look uncomfortable. So when I'm looking at the secondary, I don't think it's a problem. Like, I think Jaleel Florence has played phenomenal football. Tawaski Bridges coming in, I think he's played really good. They got a lot of length. They got a lot of athleticism. I think this group is continuing to get better. And when they do get beat, it's just really good. It's just really good quarterback wide receiver play. Now, one thing that when I look at this Oregon team and specifically looking at potential rematch for Washington or some of these high-powered offenses that they'll see in the Pac-12, I would like to see the pass rush be better with their front four, right? You look at the numbers, a 9.9% sack rate, that is top 20 in the country. Like Oregon is sacking the quarterback, but it's a lot of schemed up pressures, right? Evan Williams from that safety spot has 4 sacks. Jamal Hill has 2 sacks. When you look at the pass rush win rates, when you watch the film, Brandon Dorlus has been really good, right? 18 hurries and 9.7 pass rush win rate. Outside of that, you're looking, and this is getting nitpicky, and I'm kind of interested to hear what Oregon fans have to say about this. But when you look at the rest of these guys, Jordan Burch, a former 5-star going into his 4th year, transfers in Oregon, only 9 quarterback hurries, a 9% pass rush win rate. Mateo Yu at a 9% pass rush win rate, only 6 hurries on the season. I think this defensive line can get after it a little bit more. And again, you go back and watch what Arizona State was able to do to kind of throw off the Washington Huskies. It was able to get pressure, especially on that inside. When you're looking towards that rematch, Michael Penix didn't take a sack against Arizona State. Now, I'm not really just saying we should only be looking at the rematch against Washington. That being said, one way you can really throw off some of these quarterbacks is not necessarily sacking them, but kind of muddying the pocket. And from the pass rush standpoint, I would like to see a little bit more disruption. And the sack rate is great, but I want to see a little bit higher of a pass rush win rate for some of these guys on the defensive line. I want to see a little bit more quarterback hurries and pressures registered because that's the best way to throw off a quarterback that is playing at a high level like Michael Penix is. You don't necessarily need to sack him, but you have to make him uncomfortable. And again, that Washington Huskies offensive line on the inside, that's probably where you're trying to get after them. That's the one thing I'd like to see Washington or Oregon, excuse me, continue to get better at. But I will say what Dan Lanning and that defensive staff is doing a really good job of, they're scheming up pressures, right? They're giving a lot of different looks. They're sending backers, they're sending safeties. I'd like to see them continue to do that. But if you can get pressure with this front four, with how good I think the secondary is playing, I think that's kind of the stepping stone for this Oregon defense. Now, this has been a complete team. It's been, I think, one of the best teams in college football. I still think there's some meat left on the bone for the Oregon Ducks, and specifically with this pass rush. Really excited to see what they can do against Utah. Again, they're going to try to play some bully ball. I think Utah has that front seven to handle it. Really excited for that matchup. Really high on this Oregon team. Like, the more I watch them, the more I look at the numbers. This is a complete team. Not many holes in this depth chart. Really excited what Dan Lanning can do down the stretch with this program. Duck fans, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.